Random Shark. WildSpartanz is probably one of the least respected people in the commentary community in terms of public perception of his videos, with the party line that I often hear from his fans being, his content's not great, but he's a nice person. And for the extent of videos, interviews, and podcasts I've seen from him, I'd agree with that sentiment. He seems to be a decent guy who makes consistently average to subpar quality videos. And because of the success he's attained, in conjunction with the majority of his videos not being any great accomplishment, it's opened him up for a lot of criticism from the community.
Everyone's always shouting him out and retweeting him, telling him how much of a great content creator he is. But he's not.
I even made a video criticizing him over a year ago, citing two of the most common points that often get brought up on him today, such as him stretching his content to hit the 10-minute mark and covering trending topics without bringing anything interesting or insightful with him. And while both are still of some issue, I don't personally think they're as prevalent of criticisms as they were a year ago, at least from the videos of his that I've seen. He's not adding 3 minutes of black screen at the end and telling you that you're weird for watching that far anymore.
You guys want to know a secret? This video was 12 minutes before I cut out little gaps and questions I fucked up on. Like, YouTube is so hard. Like, it's so hard to get the extra fucking ad revenue. Like,
instead, these days, if time's not at 10 minutes, he seems to often just repeat his points.
Why is there a technical issue on YouTube? Please tell us why the technical issue occurred. Just a technical issue. That stupid technical issue. Technical issue. Technical issue.
Which of course leads people to the perception that you're extending your content solely for the benefit of getting a few more dollars in AdSense, even if it's a detriment to the video. And if you'd like to argue the popular perception of people thinking this is irrelevant, allow WildSpartanz to tell you himself that
perception trumps the reality of the situation. It's that simple. Right?
Now, I say all of this not as preface to criticize him, but as preface to say that WildSpartanz obviously looks at YouTube with the intent of making money. And while it's very easy to take that into the next step of calling him greedy, it's a debatable term for him at best. I think it should be more so likened to him viewing YouTube as his job, which, I mean, it is, but insofar as him seeing it as money first, be creative or exhaustive in research if time allows.
Well, it's the whole, you're just like, doing it for views, which is the whole fucking point. You know, I
like views.
Right.
And as this seems to be the way he views his presence on the site, it brings up the question of how legitimate a stance should this be to take? In other words, do you think it's legitimate to predominantly look at YouTube as your job? And in my opinion, there's no real correct answer to that. Because while it would seem like the obvious answer would be, yeah, tons of people make a career on YouTube, so why can't you look at it like that? I think in taking that view, you can justify doing almost anything under that pretense. For an extreme example, let's look at Lispy Jimmy for a second. Like it or not, YouTube is Lispy Jimmy's job. He's made a career out of outlandish clickbait and horrible videos. But, I mean, since it's his job, can you really blame him? He's just doing what he's got to do to keep his job, right? He just has to pay the bills. And to a much lesser extent, the same logic can be applied to WildSpartanz. He has to stretch his videos to 10 minutes or else he's not going to make enough money to go full bore on the platform. And you can take that argument, as WildSpartanz is prone to doing, and turn that into, if I was really money hungry, I'd be making even worse videos.
Because it's like, if I was a money whore, I'd be making videos like Extract Hub, for example.
Right.
And sure, he could be making worse videos, but that's not an argument. Everyone could be making worse videos. Even Lispy Jimmy could be making worse videos. For example, he could wear his sunglasses correctly. There goes that essential Lispy Jimmy comedy that we all subscribe for.
What's up, guys? Lispy Jimmy here. I hope you're doing great today. Actually, I hope you woke up feeling freaking awesome.
But in seriousness, pushing the blame off onto another person that is worse than you doesn't absolve you of a flawed practice. But regardless, this is the philosophy that WildSpartanz seems to live by. This is my job, I want this to continue being my job, and to do so, I will do as much as I can to retain my success. And to that effect, WildSpartanz has been very successful. 160-something odd thousand subscribers is certainly nothing to scoff at. And while, as I said above, I don't think any of his videos are any great achievement, there's something that WildSpartanz seems to have taken at least a decent amount of time looking into, and that would be how to succeed.
But there is like a base formula where it's like, views in the first couple hours, crucial to the video's performance. And if you get those views in the first couple hours, the video has a lot more potential in search.
WildSpartanz seems to be very interested in the growth side of the platform. How to get your channel out there, how to hit the recommended, what thumbnails work, what topics work, and everything that could help him get more of a foothold to success. He's put a lot of thought into these various areas and has been rewarded as such, even to the point where I'm Alex credits him as a person to come to with issues in this category.
for titling, tagging, doing his thumbnails, taking his entire video ideas and re-uploading them to their channel just with their face and voice. And it's like, you know, people don't credit Brandon for the work he does.
So to take a look at his channel from this lens is perhaps to say, even more so than money, he runs his channel as a feedback loop for success. Now, is this a bad thing? No, not exactly. It's not like he's beating a bag of kittens against a brick wall, but it allows him to bypass what are so often his criticisms and bend his principles to push further into success. For example, his principle on clickbait used to be this.
Clickbait is misleading. Putting tits in the thumbnail when there's no tits in the video is an example of misleading.
But he's become very lenient on it to allow him to title things like, "This channel is worse than Rice Gum," so that he can play off the big name of Rice Gum, but it doesn't give you any hints to the main topic of discussion for the video. And that's fine, it's not worse than Lispy Jimmy, but that was a principle that you've had and lost in order to reach a wider audience with that video. And that principle is lost, it's fine. The point is not to bitch about a misleading title, the point is to say that you can slowly swallow everything into a vacuum of acceptance when you lose your principles. This is okay because of X reason. This is okay because of Y reason. And in that way, I can see why most of these stronger criticisms of WildSpartanz have been, for the most part, ignored. Because the majority of them are not criticisms that are going to garner him any more success on the platform. They're criticisms that are going to make his videos better. Taking the time to do an in-depth analysis of something probably isn't going to allow for 3 videos a week. Being more concise in the things that you say isn't going to rack you up 10 minutes as easily. So why would you attempt to do these things if they aren't going to help you earn and succeed? And I don't really know what that answer is for most people. Why would you take the path of more resistance when a decently edited facecam Logan Paul video will get you twice the views in a third of the time? It just makes sense to take that path. And I do think that's the path that WildSpartanz has taken. A path that's more so focused on the success side of YouTube instead of the path that's centered around making something unique, different, or creative. And I think a lot of the inner conflict that happens between people in commentary takes place between people who are looking at YouTube from different places on these paths. For example, I don't like WildSpartanz content. I personally think that it's pretty vapid, uninspired, and that he does very little to expand upon or adapt the source material that he works with. Now, that's my opinion, and you could make the same critique of me from your view, but from my view, the way I attempt to approach the site is make good content that I want to make and let success come when it hopefully does. However, I don't think that's the way that WildSpartanz views it from his end. I believe he views it as success is the predominant enjoyment factor in making content. The more successful his content is, the happier he will be with that product. It usually seems to be less so about him putting out something that he can be proud of making in the future, and more so about what that video can do for his channel at that time. However, that's not to say that at the center of these two approaches, sometimes our ideals meet. I'll cover trending topics when I think there's something in that topic that really piques my interest in it. And WildSpartanz makes his excessive exposition series to satiate his desire to create something that actually has quite a bit of work put into it.
When I decided to start my excessive exposition series.
Okay.
That's the moment that I like the most besides 100K, because I feel like that's the type of content that I put the most in, and I research the most, and I put the most effort in.
And while, in the end, I think his content veers into vapid and uninteresting way too often to give him any kind of pass myself, I can put a logic to it that I think makes sense, even if I don't agree with that approach. Anyways, that's the video, guys. Like it, don't like it, let me know. I think I wrote and revised this script 4 times, so if any of it doesn't match up that well, I apologize. My initial draft took a more detailed look at WildSpartanz's approach in terms of putting success first and where I think that can lead you as you struggle to retain YouTube as your job, eventually drawing parallels between him and Lispy Jimmy, whom he hates, which is why I brought up Lispy Jimmy in the beginning of the video. But I thought that draft aired too far on the side of criticizing him, and I wanted to more so get across a cohesive argument for how he could have reached this point on his channel and the logic behind it. And I could be completely wrong that this is his approach, but if his approach is similar to mine, I have to say that I think he's doing it wrong. Also, there's one thing that's irked me about WildSpartanz that happened after he started getting this heavy criticism and addressing it, and that's the mischaracterization that he seems to give all his criticisms. Like, Christ, some of them are so blatant it's ridiculous. Like in his excessive exposition on 10-minute videos, he spends a third of it explaining why YouTubers aren't evil.
That does not mean they hate their fan base and are evil people. That is something people like to push towards people who make 10-minute long videos, that they're evil. Everyone I know who has stretched a video to 10 minutes long cares about their fan base and are nice people.
That's something that doesn't even need to be said, but even if you do feel it necessary, it's a 2-line refutement at best. because no logical person is sitting down to argue that every YouTuber is evil because they make 10-minute videos. And when he does actually discuss the topic of stretching content, which is the main criticism, he gives a sob story about it.
And most of them only stretched their content because the extra revenue was the only way they could pay their bills.
And pushes the blame onto others who do it worse.
One of the only people I think you can say are stretching most of their content is Lispy Jimmy.
This video counters nothing. It discredits none of the criticisms. It's trash. And I mean, I could go on and on about this because it's just something that he's done that's irked me, but I didn't want to make a separate video on it or anything, so I just figured I'd bring it up here. Also, let me say that some of his more recent videos have actually been much better, more concise and focused than he's been in the past in my opinion, so hopefully he can continue that trend going forward. But I fear that once a new big trend like the next content cop or something crops up and there is actually something to talk about, he'll go back to rushing out videos since trending topics have a very small time frame. But only time will tell that. Shark pride for life, bruh.